If you have people in your life that are truly the kind of people that you go to when in a crisis, they're truly this board of directors, something that we're talking about here, Big A, is creating this personal board of directors. Well, if these are your personal board of directors, you got to talk to them. You got to communicate to them, not just when you need something, as you said, but more regularly.
Seth, it's been a great week for me. Hopefully it's been for you.
It's been epic. Had a wedding, all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah, that wedding was a week ago, though. You ought to be rested and recovered by now.
This is true. I'm back in the groove. Everything's smooth sailing, just like always, right?
People are talking to me about my tan. They're saying, Big A, you're so tan. I've been fishing a lot. The fish are biting right now in Nashville. You need to come out, man. We need to go out in the boat and do a little fishing together.
Well, I don't have a white spinner. I mean, it was your white spinner that caught all those
spinner bait.
keepers.
It was, but I've got multiple white spinner baits. And so you don't need anything. All you need to do is show up. I got plenty tackle. I could open a bait and tackle shop. So you don't need anything. You just get out here from Oregon and Big A will show you around the lake.
Count on it.
So it'll be fun. Hey, speaking of that, you are one of my top 10 guys. And this is what we're talking about today, the circle of 10, why your crew determines your climb. And I want to dive right in the thick of this because if you show me your 10 closest brothers, I'm going to show you the ceiling of your life because nobody climbs higher than the strength of the circle around him. Yep. And I'll tell you, this is something that it's not relatively new, but in comparison to my lifespan, I guess you could say only a third of my life have I really been involved in adopting this mindset. And I want to dive in just for a second, just for context's sake. And I was sharing this with you and our producer a little bit before we hit the record button. This is not the way I was taught. This is not the way my dad raised me. My dad was a very private man. It didn't matter what it was that we were going through. It was private and you never share it. I don't care if you're afraid, if you're scared, if you're out of money, if you've got a sin to confess. It doesn't matter what it is. We discuss it in the family and you don't go outside of this family. You don't need to share any secrets with anybody. And I was like, man, I lived for the first 40 years of my career, or first 40 years of my life, I guess, first 20 years of my career with the mindset, you don't share anything with anybody. So what about you? Were you raised differently or similar?
Well, I was raised in a commune, so there's that. So it was a little different. There was people you trusted, people you didn't trust. But I can think about it from the context of my dad. My dad was more of very much a people person. And so he tried to connect with others and, was really a possibilities thinker. He was pretty entrepreneurial. So I think I would say he was a little bit more extroverted, life of the party. Maybe didn't go as deep in terms of saying how he was feeling, but I think guys of a certain generation, they just didn't talk about.
Our dads didn't talk about that at all.
But
right.
I will tell you this, relative to this topic is, I always told our kids as they're growing up, it's like somebody's leading. You're either somebody else is leading you or you're leading them, right? And I think the context here is this is not something to be approached in neutral. If we want to be around people that inspire us and challenge us and call us to our best version of ourselves and even give us a blueprint or a template or even a vision for what our kingdom effectiveness can be, that's an intentional thing. And if we're not being intentional, we have to really check. Are we actually being pulled back because we're just allowing the wrong influences, frankly, in our life to stall us, right?
Here's the thing, too, and everyone that follows us knows that we have Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind. And we want you to know that's just a very small portion of what we're talking about. Seth and I were talking about earlier a guy here in Nashville that I've been seeing for almost 30 years on a regular basis, professionally, go to see him. Robin and I go together and we see him. Floyd Dawson's his name. He's a great guy that lives here in Hendersonville, in my city. And that guy has probably saved our marriage and probably saved my sanity on top of that. So he's a really important person. Robbie Gallaty, my pastor at Long Hollow Baptist Church, is somebody that I confide in regularly. Alan Lindsay, Hugh Morris, Chris Freeman, Randy Butler, all these guys are guys that I confine in on a regular basis that are not even in our mastermind group. So the mastermind group is a place to kind of get started, but I want this level of accountability and I want men around me in every arena of my life, personally, professionally, and spiritually, whether it be virtual or in person, to be able to help walk me on this journey. And so I just want to make it clear that it's in all facets of our life, not just in our mastermind.
So, Big A, I think about this phrase to know and to be known. Like that's a human longing we have, but we're finite. We can only be at one place at a time, and so you're talking about all those people that you're in good, deep relationship
Right.
with, and I'm like, how do you find the time? Because it does take proximity to breed this influence. So, how do you be intentional? Like, how do you really cultivate genuine, ongoing relationships with people that you don't see every day?
Yeah. Well, it's takes a lot of work. And for me to say it's easy would be a lie. It's not. It's very difficult, quite honestly, and it takes an inordinate amount of time. But it just depends on how much you want to grow and how much realism you want to hear from people that have context of your life. And you're like, man, I don't have that amount of time. Well, I think oftentimes we don't have time not to do it if we want to be all that God's called us to be,
Yeah.
because it does take that amount of work on a regular basis to really go that deep in order to maximize the purposefulness that we have in our lives.
Yeah. How important is it to you? I mean, because you look, any other category of life, I mean, if we really believe the premise of this, which is the 10 people that we're around really impact the trajectory of our life and our kingdom effectiveness, our legacy. Like, if we believe that, we have to look at it the same way that we would look at, for instance, our health, physical health. It's like, if you believe that being healthy and fit is important, it's gonna show up in your choices, right? Choices to not have that dessert, but to do this thing, to be at the gym. It's like, it's going to be real work. If you want to invest in your relationship, we all know this with our wives, is like, man, it just doesn't happen by being passive. You have to hang it up there on the mantle, like, this is really important to me. And then you start to move your behaviors to reflect how important it is. Because it seems like drift is contagious, right? It just happens if we let it. Right.
Yeah, we get lazy. It's like you do drift in every area of your life. It doesn't matter if it's personal development, professional development, your spiritual development. If we're lazy and we're not consistent, we do drift. And it's contagious not only to that particular area of your life. My dad used to say, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. And so drift is contagious in every area of your life. We've got to not just pay attention, but we've got to act as a result of what our intentions are. That's the reason it's so important to have people around you to hold you accountable, to have a vision, to have a plan. I didn't have any of that 25, 30 years ago in my business, and I grinded it out. I look back at my businesses now, and I look back at my marriage, and I'm like, how much better could it have been had I aligned myself with people like Floyd Dawson and Alan Lindsay and Hugh Morris and all these guys that I've named, Chris Freeman, and then even the virtual guys that I have in my life now. I've got hundreds of guys in my life now virtually that have walked this journey with me for over a dozen years. They have really helped me down the path to grow in every area of my life and to challenge me in everything that we do.
Yeah, and if you have a circle and your circle is kind of lukewarm and compromised, you're going to find that starts to sneak into our life too. So thinking about the purpose of brotherhood, Big A, I know that you, probably more than 99% of the people I know, are not afraid to get in somebody's grill and challenge them, but from a motivation of love and encouragement. But how do you balance that truthfulness with kindness and grace? And then I want to ask you on the back end of that is, how often have you like totally offended somebody just because you're like, hey man, can I tell you the truth? And then they kind of tell you that they're ready for it, and then you like double blast them and they're like, oh my gosh, you hurt my feelings.
This has been a source of contention for me in my life for the past 25 plus years. And Robin has helped me probably more than anybody really temper that a little bit, because used to, I didn't even preface it. I didn't beat around the bush. I just said it. And that didn't serve me well at all, quite honestly. People weren't prepared for that. They wasn't ready for that. I don't ever mean it condescending or judgmental, but I feel like we're wasting time if we coddle you too much. And it's like, hey, let's just say it. So I have learned to surround myself with people, me personally, in my personal life, with people that are very similar to that. These guys don't coddle me at all. They call me out. They call me up, hopefully. But here's the caveat to all of it, is they're doing it because they love me. They don't have anything to gain or lose as a result of calling me out or calling me up. There's no dog in the hunt for them other than our friendship.
Yeah.
And so for me personally, I've learned the strategy of let's just get to it and say it. Oftentimes, though, that's been a reflection back to me, and they are able to call me out and call me up to a greater level because we have that understanding. But I'm still not real diplomatic. I'm still not real good at positioning it in a way that's gentle and soft. Well, we're getting deeper than I wanted to get this morning, Seth. So thank you for doing this. It's
Do you
funny
need a
because
tissue or anything over there?
Robin and I had this discussion yesterday. It's funny that you touched on this. I don't know if I'm angry or glad, but Robin said, "Why did you say it so stern to me?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she repeated it. She said, "You just said it like this." And I'm like, I had no idea I said it like that. I didn't mean it that way. It's just, I think it's just my demeanor and my personality. I'm just forward and I just say it. But I think if we do that with the wrong motivation, I think that's wrong. But if we're doing it and we learn to accept people that are really close friends of ours now, they know that I'm just direct and forward, and they know not to think anything about it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Robin is like, I want you to learn to say it with a little more compassion, a little bit more empathy instead of just being so direct. So it's honestly, I guess now that you're pointing it out, it's probably a flaw in me that I don't present it sometimes in a way that's really more acceptable to some people.
Well, I think sometimes it's your audience too. I remember there's a question: is the teacher teaching if the learners aren't learning? Right. So
Mm,
in some environments, the learners can need that. Like
mm.
we need a little bit of shock therapy. In other environments, not so much. So yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, I'm just curious here now that we've gotten all
Mhm.
vulnerable and transparent. Have you seen a growth in me? You've known me a dozen years now, or is it still just as blunt as it was?
No, I actually have seen a tempering of the temperature in which it comes at you. I
That's
think
good.
I feel like I genuinely have, but I also I've appreciated, and I will say this about you: you tend to say it with a smile,
Mm,
unless it's a moral issue. Like you tend to be like, "Hey, man, like why haven't you recorded your audiobook? If you're not going to
mm.
get that done in the next 30 days, you're going to give a gift to your, favorite non-charity." And I was like, "Whoa, all right."
Hey, it got it done, didn't it?
It did. I'm in right now. It is a couple weeks or a couple days away from the end of the month, and I told my ISI guys, I'm like, I will, I will hit this goal weight. I will have 1 cup of coffee every day because I was getting out of hand with my cappuccinos. I'll have my time management plan kind of implemented, and I'll have a cash flow budget. Like, and I'm about a week out, and guess what? I'm on the scale. I'm looking at stuff. I'm focused because I know that I told these guys I'm gonna get there, and they're gonna hold me accountable in about 4 days. Now, that's not normally how I roll, but I can also say I'm in a season of progress right now because I have that level of accountability with these guys.
Do you desire that level of accountability, or is it something that you just find is necessary for you to progress?
A little of both, a little of both. I
Do you
think
think most people repel accountability or are desirous of it?
I think they I mm, that's a good question. I think eventually they appreciate it because they like progress. I mean, it's like
Mm.
going to the gym. Like I say, when you start to see some results and your clothes start to fit, you're like, all right, this is worth it. But at first, you're like, oh my gosh, my back hurts.
There was a guy in ISI, it's been here for 10 or 11 years, I guess. And he would never fill out his accountability progress report. And I got on him in front of some guys in the group one day pretty hard. And he goes, I'll just be honest with you, I don't need the accountability. And he really pushed back. And we're good friends. I mean, I go to his house and we fish together, and I mean, we're good friends. But he just said, I'll let you know when I need it. And so I thought about it. And this was one of those high D personalities hitting another high D personality. My approach was not really good. So next day I got in the hot tub and I was thinking through it, and I was praying, Lord, how can I present this in a different way to my brother? And so I called him and I said, let's call him Billy. That's not his name. Let's call him Billy. I said, Billy, let me ask you a question. He said, yeah. I said, we kind of got into it yesterday a little bit, and I'm sorry for that. But I just want you to know that I'm really concerned about you losing a little bit of weight. And I'm concerned about your grandkids. I'm concerned about your marriage. I'm concerned about your health. And when I presented it that way, he said, Big A, thank you so much. It was totally different than the day before. You know what he did? He did something about it after that. And so I think us as leaders and facilitators and people that are in people's lives, a skill I need to learn better is the one you pointed out, is to learn how to present it differently to different people. But the point was, he did need and he did desire accountability. It was just the presentation was wrong.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm thinking about at a high level is when life gets really busy, we don't have time for meaningful conversation. We tend to think, I don't want to waste time. I'm just going to, quote unquote, cut to the chase.
Mm.
And that is a shortcut that actually stifles implementation. It's not as effective, right? And I think what I'm aspiring to in life is that there's a little bit more margin, so you can notice those conversations, and that conversation, rather than just feel like a drive-by shooting to that other person, is actually one of these moments where we have the privilege of speaking into their life with some tact and some empathy in a way that could literally change their life.
Yes.
Right? If we'll notice the moment. But many
Yes.
times we're
Yes.
just going so fast. We're like, I don't have time to notice the moment. Well, if you don't have time to notice the moment, guess what? You're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Right? I'm doing something wrong.
And I'm guilty of that. I
Yeah.
get moving at such a high speed.
Yes, sir.
Outside of accountability, let's jump for a second to networking opportunities with the people that, because it's not the reason you go into it. Can you share an example of networking opportunities for you, of the people that are closest to you, and how that's been effective or beneficial to you?
Help me understand what you mean by networking in that context.
Yeah, I mean, when you call me and say, "Big A, do you know this person, or do you have
Yeah.
a resource, or do you have an avenue that would help me in regards to connecting with someone else?"
Yeah.
Robbie Gouty would be an example
Mhm.
for you there in Oregon, right? Some of
Yeah.
the things that you do.
Yeah.
There's other benefits outside of accountability. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, there are.
When you have close
You only
friends.
have a few. You have to be cautious, and and you can only be friends. I remember hearing somebody one time ask. They were Chuck Swindoll, a famous preacher, was at a retreat center, and somebody came up and he was just moved by his talk and said, "Hey, can we be friends?" And Chuck somehow delicately said, "For me to be your friend means I have to kick somebody else out of the circle." And I thought, oh, that's an interesting insight, because you can only have so many close friends, right? But you do need to build this tribe and this circle of this. It's been described sometimes as this board of directors, right? And so I think we have to have and in the same way, almost like sales, you got to have your opportunity eyes open, which is who is a good mentor who's further down a path that I actually want to travel on. And then you actually have to go get those people. You have to get them through tapping your network, Big A, or getting on an airplane, or going to a conference, or sometimes joining a mastermind. Like, I don't know if you remember this. I bought your podcasting service when I first met you. to help me get, because you were partnered with a business that did help people
Right.
get, and I had just written the book, Ambition, Leading with Gratitude. Buy yours now on Amazon. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, by the
Uh,
way, that's a great place to put that plug, and it is a great book. So
it's,
go buy
it's
Seth's
right over
book.
my
No
shoulder.
kidding.
Um,
Gratitude's a great book.
but, and I had a philosophy, which was invest in the relationship with your hand out to give, not take out of the gate, right? And so I had a way of communicating to you, hey, what you care about is important to me. And I think this is interesting enough. I'm willing to spend some money and some time, and then let's see what can happen. And getting to know you has changed my life in a lot of really great ways. And I can I can go through a long list, because this is how my brain works, of people you introduced me to that introduced me to others. I just came back from Costa Rica and Panama. I was there looking after an investment that I made from somebody that Derek Champagne introduced me to, and you introduced me to Derek. And right, so I can see how the network
Sure.
and God's kingdom all integrates
Sure.
together. But the point of all of that is you have to be intentional and you have to be active, and you also have to test your motives, right? And you can't come off like a creeper, like you're
Right.
needy, like you demand something from people. But you have to also pursue people that you'd like to have a genuine friendship with, and then take the steps. And sometimes the door closes and sometimes the door opens. And, that's a God thing.
I want to give a little tip to some of those just starting to network and starting to build their circle of 10 and start really pouring into the people that you want to be mentors in your life. And here's the thing, here's the biggest pro tip I could give you is call those people and check on them when you don't need anything.
Yeah.
And invariably, the people that do that have the most dividends over the long haul of their life. And what I mean by that is, I get phone calls from various people. Hey, can you introduce me to this person? Well, I hadn't heard from them in 2 years. And hey, can you do this for me? Or I need your help in doing this. But the people that call me and say, hey, Big A, checking on you, checking on Robin. How's Holly doing with, the transplant? How's your grandkids? And a lot of the times people do that to warm up. Then they get to what they really want. And when you stop at that and you don't ask for anything, you're like, hey, it makes an indelible impression on me because you really were interested in me.
I
Then when
love
it
that.
is your time
Yeah.
to get something or need help, it's a lot easier to get. And so that's the reason you said earlier, you can only manage so many people. You can only do that with so many people.
Yes, and if you're always chasing something new rather than caring for what you already have, you're not being grateful. And this is me preaching to myself. I was literally thinking last night about some amazing friends that I have that I haven't talked to in a while, and I'm like, why? Make it a priority, value them. Gratitude is appreciating a gift that has been received. If you have people in your life
Mm.
that are truly the kind of people that you go to when in a crisis. They're truly this board of directors, something that we're talking about here, Big A, is creating this personal board of directors. Well, if these are your personal board of directors, you got to talk to them. You got to communicate to them, not just when you need something, as you said, but more regularly. And I just want to camp on this idea for a second. And that is how you show the Lord appreciation for the mentors and friends that he's put in your life. He knows you need friends. Question we should be asking is, how are you caring for those friendships, right? And here's the other one that really gets me with myself, is I have to be careful on the classes of people. And I know that everybody flinched when I just said that, but we all know there's different stratums of people, right? You have friends. You have friends that have no money, but have a great family. You have friends that have a lot of money and have a crappy family. You have friends that have money and great family. And how you pick your friends is in whether you're sorting them by their net worth or you're sorting them on their kingdom faithfulness. Like there's a little bit of science and a little bit of art to that. And Big A, I'm curious on your feedback on that.
Yeah, I think it's really important that you look at all those aspects in regards to picking out people that you want to be associated with, that you want to be mentors in your life, that you want to give solid advice. And I have a lot of close friends that have helped me work through various situations, some of them personally, some of them professionally, some of them spiritually, all different arenas of my life. There's different people that have helped at different times. And so I think all those things are important to measure, but it's not for the sake of what you can get from them, but it's the sake of how you can pour into them in their life. And so I think that you've got to really evaluate your friendships closely. Robin and I paired off some people over the past 10 years in our life because they were draining us, literally sucking the life out of us. Everything was negative, everything was bad, nothing was going to be good. And it's like, you know, you can be around that for a little while, but if you really want to level up in your own life, there's got to be a sense of encouragement. There's got to be a sense of hope. There's got to be a sense of aspiration. And so Robin and I've really picked our friends very, very closely. And they say that people that get around people and talk about people is not somebody you want to hang out with, right? You don't want to be around people that are always gossiping or talking about others and from a negative perspective. So I think all of these things have worth or value as you're determining what that group of people are. But for me personally, it's first and fundamentally, they've got to have a solid foundation.
Yeah.
And they've got to have principles by which they live their life, not only through audible, but through demonstration. We have very close friends that I can say, hey, man, I see you model what you teach. And those are the people that I want to be around. It's people that are encouragers. They lift you up. They have similar core values in alignment with Robin and I and the way we want to live our life, because you want to be around iron sharpens iron. It's people that encourage you to a degree, that don't just make you feel good about yourself, but it kind of goes back to that accountability. It's people in your life that can really help you from a challenge you is kind of a form of love. It's really pushing you to level up in your faith, in your family, in your finances. These are people that are saying, you can't do that, or you can't do this. I saw a guy at church a couple of years ago, and I was telling him about all the fish I'd caught in South America, and Alan Lindsay overheard me tell this guy, and Alan called me to lunch the next day, and he said, you made it sound like you were a world traveler to this guy. You've been all over South America fishing, and the truth is you've been down there twice, and you've covered about 50 miles of a 4,000-mile Amazon chain. And what you were wanting that guy to think of you as a big deal fisherman. And what was I going to say? I mean, that was truth. And he said, you need to be factual with people. And it's really made me think now when I tell stories, tell the story factual and not leading people to believe something that isn't true. And so he loved me enough to call me out, to call me up to that. And so that's what we're trying to say here is, do you have people in your life today that are doing that? Do you have people that are calling you up, that are calling you out in a loving way? And maybe they're more tactful than I am. Hopefully they're more tactful than I am in doing that.
Yeah.
But these men need to be cheerleaders in your life. They need to hold you accountable, to ask you the tough questions. I do an exercise, and I would encourage everyone listening to this podcast today to do the same exercise. You're like, man, I don't know if I'd want to do that. I write letters to people that I know intimately, and we'll call it 10 or 12 guys. And I will ask them specific questions. How you see me treating Robin? How do you see me as a grandfather? How do you see me the way I talk versus the way I do business? How do you see me in all these areas? Now, I want to tell you, the first time I did that, I felt like I'd been knocked out of the boat with a boat paddle. I didn't expect the answers that I got, because I thought, I've kind of got it together in these areas. And other people see you differently than you see yourself.
Right.
So don't think that you're going to get all this lovey-dovey back if you really are subjecting yourself to those answers to those questions. And it has heightened my awareness in so many areas in my life that I needed to work on. But I want to get better. And that's the reason that I ask these questions.
Awesome. Well, we're just about to wrap this one up, but relative to this personal board of directors, you mentioned they are cheerleaders, but they're not just that. They're coaches, right? Because what we need wisdom, we need challenge, we need correction sometimes, and sometimes we need strategy, and that doesn't happen accidentally. This is too important to leave to chance.
Yes.
If you hear anything from this episode, it's be intentional about seeking out this tribe of mentors, right? These coaches, these brothers that you can walk with, because your odds of having the kind of life and the kind of kingdom impact that you're capable of go up as you invest in these men.
You know, your circle is going to either call you to greatness in you or quietly let it die. And your climb is determined by the crew, the people that you surround yourself with. I can promise you, you weren't made to go it alone. And we here at ISI, we want to do life with people. We don't want to do it solo. And I hope you don't either. I want you to take a hard look at your inner circle and ask, who has permission to challenge my decisions, to challenge the way I might be drifting, and to really get into your life this week and figure out what I can do to level up so that I can go higher and be all that God called me to be. So I want to encourage you this week to take that challenge and look at your inner circle and see who it is that you need to enlist.